Good evening and welcome to the Ysleta Independent School District Board Workshop Meeting. In accordance with the Ysleta ISD Policy BED, this meeting is open to the public and we invite citizens to offer comments during the discussion designated citizens input portion of the agenda. Please note that the board will listen to all input but is legally restricted from discussing or deliberating on matters presented during this time. This meeting of the Board of Trustees is called to order at 6 o'clock. We have a quorum with Trustee Hernandez, with Trustee Haggerty, with Trustee Woodruff, with Trustee Rivera, with Trustee Dwyer, and myself. We will not vote. There will not be any votes taken on the workshop. Trustee Woodruff, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Can we have a moment of silence? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. De La Torre, do we have any presentations this evening? Oh, yes.
Skipped over this part.
Oh, my God.
After asking for
Oh, yes. Sorry. Trustee Woodruff, do we have any citizens input this evening?
No, we don't.
Thank you. Dr. De La Torre, do we have any presentations this evening?
Yes, President Bustillos, members of the board, guests. Tonight we have two presentations. The first presentation surrounds employee health benefits by Gallagher, our health benefit advisor. And with us this evening is Brandon DeBar and Natalie Haskett. I'd invite them to come up to the podium and give us the first update since we've made some changes to our health benefit plan for employees. We can hear you, but I don't think it's coming across on the microphone.
Oh, push the button, so sorry.
No problem.
Good evening, Natalie Haskett with Gallagher. Also have Brandon DeBar with me as well. Really tonight, as Dr. De La Torre alluded to, we're here to give some updates on trends, what we're seeing in the market and what might be impacting the Ysleta ISD health plan. Kind of look at where we are since we made some of our plan design changes and we have 4 months of data into 2026. And then looking at a projection for what we still think 2027 will bring us, along with some ideas around how we could hopefully narrow the gap that we potentially will be calling for. So starting out with some trends, what are the cost drivers that we're seeing in the market, both on the pharmacy and medical side? There are a few things that I did really want to touch on this evening. Some of just the baseline costs. I know we're talking about trends. I have some additional slides that kind of will show where national trend is, where Ysleta sits, both medical and pharmacy. But first wanted to set the stage on what is happening in the market to drive some of these trends. One thing that has been a major player in the market, all of our carrier partners, and when I say carrier partners, I'm meaning an Aetna, Blue Cross, Cigna, whomever that might be, they have done an extensive amount of work renegotiating contracts. However, they have seen about an 8 to 12% increase in those negotiations. So with that, when hospitals and providers are negotiating with the carriers, they have to take into consideration their costs, an increase to, equipment, labor, We have a rise in private practices being sold and kind of eaten up by hospital markets and backed by private equity. So we're kind of combating all of those things in the market. So we are seeing contracts renewing at an 8 to 12% increase over where they have been historically. So that's one thing that's driving some trend in the medical area. Another thing that is relatively new, and it's just now starting to hit El Paso as a whole. It's very popular and widespread, more San Antonio, Austin, even up into the Waco area, so that 35 corridor. What has happened is, if we remember, a few years ago, the No Surprises Act was passed. It was great for our employees and our members. That means if I go to an out-of-network facility, I will not be balance billed. If I have an emergency, I will no longer get a bill that my family cannot absorb. When that law was passed, no one understood what it would do to the employer. What has happened, especially in the space of freestanding emergency rooms, these are emergency rooms that are not affiliated with a hospital. So what they have done, as I mentioned, private equity is coming in and buying these. What they are doing, and they found a loophole. And unfortunately, Texas is one of the 5 states where freestanding emergency rooms are allowed to be built wherever a profit can be made. They do not have to have a reason where access of care is a concern. They can just build them. And so what is happening is, we're going to these freestanding ERs. They're coming into our school districts and saying, we'll pay for all the physicals. They're getting in front of the students, then telling the parents, hey, come, we'll be your primary care provider. They're doing it to police and fire. You know, anywhere where there's a large set of employees that they can talk to, they're bringing them in, and it's a wonderful experience. They get a blanket, Chick-fil-A, whatever it is. And what happens is, there's no charge. So that $500 emergency room charge that we have to disincentivize people going to the emergency room without an urgent matter, they're not being charged that, which in my opinion is fraudulent. There are some, different schools of thoughts there. So what is happening is, when that claim is coming across, Aetna in your instance is saying, okay, this is the value of that claim. This is what we're going to pay you. They're saying, nope, I will not accept that. They are going into an individual dispute resolution, an IDR process, where a third party talks to both. And in the state of Texas, 89 to 90% of the claim, the winner, is deemed at the freestanding ER. And so now they can charge more than they originally billed for. And I'm not exaggerating when I'm saying that sometimes they're billing 300 to 500% more than the original claim. And the losing party, 90% of the time is you, the employer, has to pay the fee. So in some of my book of business, we're seeing a $5 to $6 million charge just for freestanding ERs every month. As you can imagine, that's not sustainable. Again, it's not here yet. It's coming. It has already started impacting the plan a little bit. And I know the district has already taken action. We are going to be lettering these freestanding ERs, letting them know, if you see our members, we need proof that you've been collecting the copay, the cost share. We have a communication campaign to the employees in both form of a letter, a video, and more education. I know we did a lot of work around open enrollment, where we went campus to campus and educated about what a self-insured plan is, how that impacts us. This is just going to be an extension of that. So a lot of work is being done by the risk management team and leadership to try to get the message out and combat that trend. So sorry for the long spiel on that, but it is a real cost and impact. It's a real driver that is coming. The other things really are around pharmacy. As we know, GLP-1s are not new to us. We did eliminate them for weight loss last year, and as we get into the presentation, I will show you that that's really working. However, other items have been approved as far as indicators. So for cardiovascular now, metabolic diseases, and obstructive sleep disorder, they have now been approved for use in GLP-1. Now, I don't see a lot of that. Looking at your claims history, we don't have a lot of that on the plan, but again, they've been approved just like for diabetes, so we will have to cover those additional indicators. We're also seeing a large pipeline in the gene therapy world, which are great. They're cure drugs, but they're coming with $1 million, $2 million price tag each time. And then lastly, we all hear about the ACA. Some of those subsidies are ending. So where we had more folks on the private exchange, they're starting to come back into risk pool, the employers, and so it is inflating those factors, as well as Medicare has kind of stayed stagnant. They haven't increased their reimbursable rate to keep up with the market. So moving into some trends, I really just wanted to talk about what the industry trend is, and we have it kind of a 10-year look back from 2017 to 2026. In red is the pharmacy trend. It has actually dipped in the last year and a half. It's sitting right at 11.2% national trend. And medical is the purple line. It is actually increasing, right? And it's sitting right at 10.4. So if you blend those together, the national trend rate is about 10.5. And where that is important when it comes to comparing yourself to national trend, and I apologize, I know this is relatively small, so I'll speak to this. The first chart is representing the medical trend for Ysleta. Last time we were here, about this time when we were making some of our decisions, you were about 15.1%. Right now, you're at 19%. So that's kind of how we're sitting with the national trends at 10. We're more along the lines of 19. However, we have started to see a decline in our claims costs, and so we'll talk a little bit about that later as well. For pharmacy, we are actually down. Our historical look-back trend was 22%, and we are at 13%. Again, a little bit higher than national, but more in line. So I wanted to just give a brief overview of where we are month to month. Like I said, we only have 4 months of data. So looking at comparing January 25 to January 26, so on and so forth. You can kind of see where our medical claims were, pharmacy, and all of our administrative fees. I think we can see that as an accumulative, I did some math here, our pharmacy savings from 25 to 26 is right about 1.2 million. Our medical, we're up about $164,000, but it's coming down. I think in April, as a total, we saved $1.1 million between the two. So I think, January was higher. February started to come down. March was better. April was fantastic. But we have to remember, January and February, we were still seeing some claims from 2025. That's what we call run-in. And remember, we were covering different things. We had a different structure as far as our plan designs and contributions. So my hope is we stay on this trajectory and we start seeing months like April, more similar to April. And so next time we come back, when we really have to make some potential decisions, we'll have more data available to really tell a story. But all in all, good news. I think all the work that you did in 2025 to make decisions for 2026 is working. And so that first page kind of summarized everything. This next page is a cumulative, really regurgitating the same data information. But what I wanted to point out here is this is our 2026 plan performance for all plans. So approximately 3,800 employees, 5,700 members. Year to date, it's costing us our budget is about $10.1 million. So if we go to each individual plan, we can see where the platinum plan, we have the lowest head count. It's about 1,800, I wish, 1.8 million of that 10. If we move to the gold plan, that is approximately accounts for 6.5 of that 10 million. And I will tell you, it is a significant head count. It's not the highest plan. The high deductible health plan has more employees on it. However, 6 of our 8 large claimants actually sit on this gold plan. So that goes a long way to tell the story as to why this plan is performing the worst at this point. So we just kind of keep that in mind. And then lastly, our high deductible health plan, 1,800 employees, 2,700 members are accounting for 33.5 million. That plan is performing relatively well right now. They had a fantastic April. So moving on to some of where our large claimants are sitting, we start tracking large claimants over $200,000. And this is a combination of both medical and pharmacy claims. As a reminder, our individual stop loss kicks in at $425,000. So once we pay that as a district, Aetna takes on the burden of those additional claims until the end of the year. But we can see here our top 8. We have already had a stop loss reimbursement. So claimant number 1 didn't have claims all year until April. Claimant number 2, getting relatively, we've probably already breached that 425 right now sitting in June, and you can kind of see where we are on the remainder. And what I like about this is we can see when these claims were incurred. And then down below of those 8, you can kind of see those diagnoses that, or the medical conditions that they're dealing with. Out of those, I mentioned 6 of the 8 were on the gold plan. A good mix of employee and child. What's interesting here are there are no spouses, and that's not typically what I see. Typically, I see more spouses account for those high costs. We do have 3 cancers. Probably 2 of these large diagnoses are probably one-time hit. The others are likely ongoing into the remainder of the year, possibly into 2027. So getting into where we sit now, where we think we'll be in 2027, and what we likely might want to consider to close that gap is our next section here. So the first column here is all of our factors as far as, applying trend to historically what we have seen, what we think will happen, taking into consideration all our negotiated administrative costs for both the claims administration, stop loss, all of those things that are within our contract. As a reminder, 2026 kicked off a new contract year with Aetna, so we're in our 3-year, so this will be year 1 of 3. And then, so we're saying we think the plan will likely cost $38.7 million right now. If we did nothing, just with trend and seeing where some of our claims are leading right now, we need to be prepared to make up about a $5.6 million swing. Now, again, I want to reiterate, this data is very immature. My hope is our claims experience is better and that number will reduce. But if it doesn't, we have a plan. So what I have are 2 alternatives. What we try to do is to work within the plan design and not necessarily impact employee contributions or the dollars out of their paycheck. So if we go with plan 1, we potentially still have a liability of about $566,000, meaning a deficit we would have to overcome. Alternative 2 would get us pretty even, only a $900 surplus, right? So in my opinion, that's relatively even. And what that means is, on the next page, just put here a reminder of our current benefit structure for 2026. Remember, we went from 4 plans to 3. We moved around some copays and some deductibles. So our recommendation for plan design 1 would be further increasing some of those deductibles. So on the platinum plan, it's about a $250 increase on the deductible for the ACO model, $500 for the Aetna plan. And we did tweak slightly some of the office copays. And you will see that under the emergency room, I know I just told you freestanding ERs are not charging, but it's never a bad idea to put something in writing to further dissuade use of these facilities. So that is, I don't think that has no value or savings tied to it. It's just another way to communicate the difference. But we also made some small increases to the pharmacy copays. Same with the gold plan. Again, we did not touch the deductible, just slightly increasing that out-of-pocket maximum, and then some copays. And then for the high deductible health plan, we did increase that deductible by $400, but the rest of the plan stays as it is. Remember, once an employee reaches that deductible and out-of-pocket for their family, they do not pay anything else for the remainder of the year. Alternative 2 is exactly like Alternative 1 with one exception. On the Gold plan, we moved that coinsurance, meaning the amount you would pay after your deductible was 25%. We moved it to 30%. But outside of that, everything else mirrors Alternative Plan 1. And that's really all I had for you today. I did include an appendix with some additional market trends if you wanted to dive in a little bit deeper. I also included some more details around the NSA and IDR process that does impact from those freestanding emergency rooms. Happy to take any questions.
Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for being here today and for giving us that presentation. The first time we met you, the first time you presented to us was September 2025?
Correct.
You gave us a projection on that day. What was the projection for the year for 2026?
We had projected 43.7 million.
The loss, you said we're at 5.7. So what is the loss? What was the loss that you had projected?
So we are projecting 2027 to...
No, what was the projection for 2026? When you met with us on September 2025, what was your projection on the loss?
It was a little more than $6 million.
It was a little more than $6 million?
Correct, I believe so, yes.
Okay. So this is your estimate of where we're going to end at the end of the year, the 5.6? And you said you're optimistic that it'll be less, but with optimism also means it could be worse, right?
True, yes.
And for your 2027 projections, the only way we're going to do that is to make employees pay more into their health insurance plan?
Within the plan design, yes. When it comes to copays, deductibles, at this time, we're not.
And what were those amounts that I know you said, but can you please repeat? What were those
Sure,
amounts
of
that you
course.
recommended?
Of course. For the Platinum plan, the deductible would go up about $250 for individual, $500 for family. No, I'm sorry, $250 both for the ACO. And then the Tier 2, the Aetna plan, would move from, again, $250. And then we also proposed a copay increase from $20 to $30 for primary care, for the ACO, for Aetna Broad, moving it from $40 to $55. For a specialist, moving from $35 to $50, and $50 to $75 on the Aetna, the Broad tier. For the Gold plan, that deductible remained the same. However, we did increase the out-of-pocket network to a 3-time multiplier. So now the out-of-pocket is 3 times more than the deductible, which is more industry standard there. We also moved those copays slightly from, 25 to 45, 50 to 70 on the primary. On specialists, 50 to 75, and we left the $100 copay as is. And my apologies, I missed the pharmacy copays. Those went from 10, 45, and 70 to 15, 60, and 100 on both Platinum and Gold. And then on the high deductible health plan, the deductible increased $400, so from $3,400 to $3,800.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. And if we do not adopt those changes, are we again looking at a deficit around $5.7 million?
5.6, yes.
It's closer to 5.7.
Closer to 5.7.
Okay, so we need to make those increases or else it's going to be another 5.7 million, most likely, for the 2027 year.
Correct. As it sits now with the data through April.
Okay. Thank you. It's just, to my colleagues, it's very important that we remember any deficits in the healthcare plan are taken out of our unassigned fund balance. In addition to the deficit that was named, we're looking at adding another nearly 5.7 million. And unless we pass on costs to our employees, it'll be the same next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Yes, Ms. Woodruff.
So you're saying that the plan ends, this cycle ends in December, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So basically, and this new stuff wouldn't kick in until January.
Correct, of 2027.
So how will that help with the current 5.7 deficit
So the 5.7 is what we're projecting for 2027,
for the next year?
for the next, to get us all the way through
Okay.
January to December. So it doesn't impact anything now. It's changes that we need to make to soften the entire
Okay.
next year of 2027.
Thank you. I misunderstood
No,
then.
thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Hagerty?
What's the deficit at right now?
I don't know that we have a deficit right now.
We're at zero? We're at a surplus?
So I'm tracking from what is actually incurring. I'm not sure where the fund balance with the district is. I believe we were pretty in line from a fiscal year perspective.
Which
If
is
we
pretty
project it
aligned.
out all the way, we're thinking it's an $8 million deficit at the end of the year, but we have $2 million in fund balance. So ending year deficit on December 31st, keep in mind, that's not really the end of year, it's only the end of year for the plan, would be around 6.2. So close to the 5.7.
Thank you.
So it's not 5.7, it's probably going to be 6.2?
Based on 4 months of data. So I'm going all the way to the end of the year, December 21st, and we're taking into consideration the existing fund balance. So 5.7 is her estimate. We're around 6.2 for a deficit to the health fund on December 31st.
Would you be here talking to us if we hadn't already gotten information from our internal auditor saying that we're looking at a $5.7 million deficit already? Because I feel like we've heard nothing about this until our people brought it to our attention.
I guess, can you repeat the question? I'm not.
Would you be here talking to us if our own people didn't say, look, we're already running a $5.7 million deficit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this was the 5.7 was the projection we put together to share with you all this evening.
Under the Platinum plan, it looks like telemedicine costs $30.
That is correct.
But when we approved this, this budget for the medical in August of 2025, it was with the telemedicine costing $0
Okay.
for the Platinum plan, yet here it is at $30.
I'll need to take that as a
Are there other
takeaway.
discrepancies in here as well?
I don't believe so, no.
What's driving the deficit?
So we're seeing, just kind of as I mentioned, we're seeing some cost of care. So where a claim might have been $200 2 years ago, it's now $500, $600, $700. It's really a trend driver, what's happening in the market as far as medical cost of care, increased amounts for the pharmacy. We did make some significant changes to pharmacy last year, i.e., removing weight loss, which has brought your spend down. We're also seeing, some of these freestanding emergency room charges are starting to creep up. And then, our large claimants, you do have quite a few for 4 months into the year that have a fairly high price tag. And are of disease states that aren't one-time hits, such as a, NICU baby or a motor vehicle accident.
So then why are we projecting a $50 increase in pharmacy costs if we're taking measures to bring those costs down?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the whole question.
Why is there a projected $50 increase in pharmacy costs if we're taking all these measures to bring the pharmacy costs down?
Right, so the cost of care is still going up. We're performing really well right now, and that's what I said. We take a whole look at 24 months, so we're still projecting some of this future state on what historically has happened. And so we're kind of blending that trend as to what was in 2025 and what is currently happening in 2026, taking it into some of that industry trend and trending it forward for 2027.
When's the last time we went out for a competitive bid?
Your new contract started 2026, so that would have been in 2025.
That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, can I get clarification on the 5.7 million and the 6.2 million? What is the difference, or which one is it?
The 5.7 is their projection based on 4 months of data. My original projection that we were looking at was closer to 6.2. The overall deficit is 8, but I have 2 million in fund balance.
Okay, so the real answer is we lost $8 million
Well, we have.
on this plan, right?
Only as of December 31st, based on existing data.
I don't understand the $2 million that you have. What $2 million?
We have $2 million in the health fund, in fund balance.
Okay, so you're going to deplete that $2 million and then grab another 6 from the unassigned fund balance?
That's
Okay,
correct.
that's, just wanted to be sure. Thank you.
Any more questions? I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
We got next.
All right, and the second presentation will be driven by our Chief Finance and Operations Officer, Ms. Lindley Camber.
Good evening, President Bustillos, members of the board, and Dr. De La Torre. So, to kick off our presentation, I thought I would go back to the budget development timeline and review with you some of the budget workshops we've had in the past. And the reason for this is because when you see tonight's presentation, it's exceptionally long. The reason we break these workshops into smaller sessions is because it is so long and it is so much data to review together. And so in February 18th of this year, we came before you with the fiscal stabilization plan update, because obviously you want to know where we are with regard to where we started last February of 2025. At that time, we told you what the ending fund balance was on June 30th, 24. We told you where we ended June 30th, 2025, and how much of that fund balance we consumed just ending the 2025 school year. Then we talked to you about the budgeted deficit for this year and showed you where we thought we would be at the end of this year if we actually incurred a $22.2 million deficit. When we adopted that budget, I told you at the time, that's as far as I can get it. I don't have any more savings that I can build in, and so what we will do is implement strict controls over that expenditure limit and try to reduce the $22.2 million deficit.
Ms. Cameron, is this unassigned fund balance?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I take that back. Is it unassigned, Lynn?
I believe it's unassigned.
It's just unassigned. This is just unassigned. So in February, by then we had learned that we lost an additional 400 students, or about $4 million in revenue. We had collected additional property tax revenue, and we had reduced spending by 5.1. So we projected this year's ending fund balance would be 24.9 in February. We talked about the measures that we implemented for this fiscal year. We were reviewing every single purchase that came through the system. We were only allowing mission critical. We limited travel. We limited stockpiling, so you can't buy your inventory for an entire year and sit on it because it depletes cash. We lowered the P-card limits. We reviewed every technology purchase. We refurbished technology. And as you can see, implemented several other savings measures. Then in March, we came before you and talked about the general fund, property values, and tax rate. So last year's adopted budget of the year we're currently in, the general fund revenue was $398 million, made up from these sources. We talked about enrollment and average daily attendance. We had projected a loss of 1,000. We lost 1,380. We are using for next year, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in a moment, a projection of 1,250 as the loss, and I'll show you why. That's a reasonable estimate. We talked about the revenue for this year and where we were estimating it would be at $379.2 million as compared to $398 last year. Keep in mind that we had a legislative session in January. We were pending information coming out of the legislature. We went all the way up to the last minute to adopt because we were getting runs at the very last minute from the legislature telling us, you can expect this revenue, this category of revenue. We don't know where it will fall, but you should be getting these things. This 26-27 estimate incorporates a significant reduction based primarily on the loss of students. We talked about property values, and I reminded you at the time that we didn't yet have preliminary property values. Those are always available in April of each month, of each year, usually on April 25th. Final certified values don't come in until July 25th, so we can never really talk about what this property value is doing and how does it impact our revenue until much later in the year. We have our preliminary values now. We'll talk a little bit more about it in a moment. There's an inverse relationship, so you've heard me talk about there's a cup. There's a glass full of water. It's only so high. So it's either got the state or it's got local, but you don't get more out of the cup. The cup is the cup. There's an inverse relationship between property values and state aid. And foundation payments from the state are based on current year property values. We talked about property values. As you can see now, I do have an estimate for preliminary property values. 2025 property values were $7.8 billion. This year, they're lower at $7.75 billion right now. So that's a little bit of concern to me, but with these values going down, you should expect more in state aid because the glass is the glass, right? We talked about the tax rate. Where we are currently, where we've been, you can see that our highest rate was back when we issued the 2019 voter-approved bonds. Our highest rate was $1.52. This year's rate is 1.2005, and based on current estimates we're getting from the state, it looks like this year's tax rate will be around $1.1937. And that is without considering evader, which we'll talk about more in a little bit. On April 22nd, I came before you to talk to you about the tax freeze impact. We learned on March 12th that the state had reduced our funding based on comptroller's new methodology for determining freeze loss. I talked to you about what it is, what they're doing to fix it, which is not very much, but it has been elevated, obviously, to Commissioner Morath's attention. Senator Cesar Blanco is advocating on our behalf. We have made contact with several influential persons who can help with this discussion, and we're hoping that more will be done at the legislative session this year. TEA did revise it. According to the comptroller, we should have gotten nothing in the hold harmless calculation. TEA on behalf of Commissioner Morath came back and we ended up with about $1.8 million, but it was still nearly an $11 million loss to our revenue. That was nothing to do with our calculations or any fault of the district. I showed you across TUC, which is an organization that you know we belong to, what happened to the various districts. So you can see that on February 6th, these are the estimates that each of those districts was expecting from the hold harmless calculation, and yet on March 12th, many of them, most of them, I guess all but 4, lost a significant amount of revenue. And within our own county, El Paso ISD lost 18 million, Socorro lost 23.5, and we lost 10.8. We talked a little bit about what it means for us to lose the benefit of the freeze loss. So if you are a senior citizen and your levy or your tax bill was frozen in 2006, the state used to make that up. So if your tax bill was really $5,000, the state would give us the difference between the frozen levy and what it should have been. Now the state has come back and said, no, we're not holding you harmless for that anymore because the homestead exemption reduces it and there's no freeze loss. You lost value because of the property tax exemption, not the freeze. And so they made it such that a frozen levy could be reduced even though it can never be increased. So if you'll notice at the bottom, the district's revenue decreases from $2,500 to $1,200 because of the homestead election and the reduction to the taxpayer. So never more, but absolutely they can benefit from less, which harms us. On May 20th, I came forward, and I don't mean to be sarcastic here, but we hear a lot about budgets being balanced. Well, are they really balanced? Because what tells the truth is fund balance. And so we compared them for you. We showed you across the districts, the 3 largest districts, what their ending fund balance, and this is total fund balance, what they were at EPISD, Socorro, and Ysleta. You can see that every one of us have lost a significant amount of fund balance. EPISD has come down 46 million. Ours, Socorro, has come down from 116 to 41 million. Ysleta has come down from 100.5 to 42.1. We actually have slightly more in total fund balance than Socorro did. When we look at unassigned only, you can see that EPISD had a slight increase where they sold property and it benefited their fund balance. That is a one-time addition to fund balance, and so if you're able to sell the property and you can bank it, you should. Socorro dropped from 93.8 to 37, and we dropped from 78.9 to 35.5. So Socorro has about $1.5 million more in unassigned fund balance as of last year's audited financial statements. This is our own fund balance policy. You can see that if we drop below 10%, we must take action. Depending on where we are, if we're between 7.5% and 10% fund balance, unassigned only, we have 1 year to fix it. If we're between 5 and 7.5, we have 3 years. If we're below 5, we have 5 years. We're below 5. And then May 20th, I talked to you about some of the capital projects that have been deferred. And these were identified in 2015 and 2018 by Jacobs and VLK. And for those of you who were around during the Bond Advisory Committee or the Facility Advisory Committee meetings, you may recall that there was about $2 billion worth of need identified, and we could afford $800 million. So that left $1.2 billion in unaddressed capital needs that were identified, and I did bring you binders this evening if you would like to look back through the Jacobs and VLK studies to those items that they said are not eligible for this bond program, or they aren't out of service yet. They will be out of service in 2024, 2025, 2026. And so I don't want you to be blindsided. If these things happen, it comes from the general fund. So we need a plan to develop and to adhere to that will protect the general fund if any of these catastrophic things happen. We talked about the fact that Ysleta High School already has both chillers down. We've ordered the part. It's impacting the operating budget. So it will take cash directly out of the general fund to fix this unless we follow another plan. I told you that the Ysleta High School football field is unplayable. The students will not be playing there this year. We have a plan for that as well, but the other fields also all need to be replaced in order for those students to be able to safely play. You shouldn't be surprised by these. They were well documented, identified many years ago, and typically, and you can see it historically in some of the time that I've been here, we would use unassigned fund balance strategically to address these kinds of things. But when we talk about a balanced budget, you can't operate at just a balanced budget. That just means you didn't add anything or take anything from fund balance. You have to operate at a surplus to build it back up so that you have savings for these catastrophic needs when they occur. Unfortunately, that's not the case anymore. And so this is more than the list I presented to you that evening. We've updated it, and I'll tell you why in a few moments. But these are primarily the ones that we've identified as imminent. They are risky, and we have a plan for it, but I'll talk to you about that momentarily. And so tonight, we're continuing with the presentation. What I want to talk to you about is why is enrollment decreasing, or what's happening in the nation. I think Dr. De La Torre mentioned this morning that California's enrollment decreased by 76,000, where we're at 74,000 statewide. They're much bigger, and yet we're right together with them in terms of declining enrollment. And so with regard to reducing the revenue projection and using a loss of 1,250, here's why. Pre-COVID, if you take the years from 17 through 2020, our average loss per year was 369 students. If you throw out the 2021 year, because it's so far out of the norm, it's irrelevant to the calculation, that 2,037, we set it aside because it's abnormal. And then if you take the loss from 21-22 all the way through 25-26, the average is 1,178 students. So we revised our estimate to reflect a 1,250 student loss versus the 1,500 that we originally brought to you back in February or March. When we look, I've listed all of the graduating seniors and the incoming kinder students, and you can see that back in 16-17, our decline between graduating seniors and what we replaced with kinder students was only a loss of 228. In 17-18, we lost 140. In the last 3 years, we're losing between 700 to 746. That means the replacement rate, you would have to increase the birth rate by 27.5% to make up the number of graduating students that are walking out the door. So it's not a reflection of we're not performing, because academically we're the best in the region. It's not a reflection of we're not a desirable place to go. We have the best fine arts, the best athletics, the best co-curricular, best extracurricular. It's a function of birth rate. So I wanted to show you where we've been with actual revenues and expenditures for the general fund. You can see that in 2023, the deficit was 17.7. In 2024, a deficit of 29.5. Last year, a deficit of 36.1. And this year, I think I've told you that I thought we would end the year around a $16 million deficit, which I think is remarkable, given that we adopted a deficit of 22.2. We lost a little more for enrollment, and then we got stung by the freeze loss. So if you give us back the freeze loss revenue, we would have been at a $6 million deficit from a 22.2. That's remarkable, and it's a testament to the dedication of our principals, teachers, and staff out there that are working diligently to reduce our expenditures. So with regard to this year, where we're proposing that the budget lie is with revenues of 379. You can see that that is a reduction of nearly 20 million from last year's proposed budget. And the expenditures have been reduced from 420 to 394. That leaves us with a proposed deficit of 14.9. I have a few recommendations that can bring that down further, but right now those are, to get to the 14.9, took some significant reductions across the board. Everyone is contributing to reducing the deficit. This is that graph that I have used many, many times. You know that I like it because it shows a lot of information. Back in 2014-15, our revenue was 361 and our expenditures were 357. You can see that all the way up to COVID, they tracked almost verbatim, line item for item. We were balanced. When we hit COVID, it started splitting. And between 21-22 and 26-27, you can see that delta really grew last year. This year with the proposed budget, again, it's a $14.9 million proposed deficit. When you look at the blue bar at the top, which is effectively overhead, it's your health insurance, it is your fuel, it's all your utilities, water, gas, and electric. You can see that we've reduced that from 51.4 on the far left to 41.1%. That's a 20% reduction in overhead. We have worked hard to bring those expenses down in spite of 25% inflation. So that's remarkable. But you can see the other side of the coin when you look at the hashed area below, which started out at $305.8 million for personnel costs and is now $357.1 in personnel cost. That is a 16.78% increase. And I really don't think you can squeeze your overhead much more. So I wanted you to be aware of where we're sitting with this proposed budget. Some things that have already been included to get us to the $14.9 million. So I just told you about the change in the enrollment projection, which gave us back $2.75 million. We have some property sales that we believe will close around $10.8 million. Within the reductions on the expenditure side, you can see that we have 113 resignations, natural attrition that's occurring, no layoffs, no RIF. This is just natural work that's occurred in the organization, saving us about $9.6 million. There are 8 FTEs at central office where we've been able to change their funding to federal funding. They're eligible for federal funds to pay their salaries, and we've moved them there. I haven't talked about this yet, but I will now. We are proposing that your most expensive campuses be consolidated. That is Thrive and the former CCA, or now called The Academy. That is a conservative estimate of savings of about $2 million. We would not consolidate them until January. We're announcing the program change now, but the actual consolidation would occur in January or at the beginning of the 2027 semester. The C program is tutors, and we are moving them also to federal funding. We eliminated all non-essential part-time positions. So anything that's not a crossing guard, not a school board law, or no, SBLE. Anyone that's not an SBLE, crossing guards, traffic, duty, what else, Ms. Bobby? Game workers, those are part-time employees. So those are all necessary so that we don't affect the student experience. And so anything that's not included in those categories was eliminated. And that is a savings about $502,000. We have 2 policies for your review and consideration on Wednesday. Those policy changes are within policy DEC, I think. And we are reducing bereavement leave. Currently, employees, full-time employees, are granted 5 days for bereavement leave. We're asking that that be reduced to 3 days. And then we are eliminating the purchase day policy. This is a confusing one, but basically it means that when an employee has exhausted all of their eligible leave, they can still get paid for 75% of it if they submit their request to purchase their days. And so basically they purchase sick days for 25% of their salary, and we still give them 75%. So we're asking to eliminate that policy and save us about $225,000. Those changes are built into this budget, so if the policy isn't approved, it will impact these projected savings. We are going to offer 2 retirement incentives next year to hopefully get early notice so that we can plan for those retirements, and that savings is about $3.9 million. And then right now, we have built into the health plan for next year, the employer contribution would go from $642 to $692. I'm saying take that out. We're going to pay the claims no matter what, so why deprive the general fund and put it in the health fund? We know we're going to pay it, so let's don't impact the general fund with that change. So you'll notice in the far right column, I'm saying proposed changes to this budget before we adopt. I would put that 2.7 back in the general fund. And then on the savings for solar program, we have incurred a savings up to now, so 4 months actually through April, of $137,000. That means the year will yield $411,000 savings against our electric cost. So I would build that additional savings in. We have another payroll loan of $63.2 million, so we have $2.2 million in interest that we'll have to pay back. We went to the campuses and the departments, and we actually asked them for their support and said, look, you were able to sustain your operations this year with this level of spending. Can you do it again? And they've said yes. So we took another 10.3 across the district from campuses and departments and held them basically to what they spent this year. So if they got through this year on that level, we think they can do it again, and they said yes, they could. Then we have built in additional costs for some transition. When we move people from campus to campus, it takes money to do that. We built in election costs. So we have 3 or 4, 4 trustees, I think, up for election. Thank you, ma'am. 4 trustees up for election in May. We built those election costs in. We also built in election cost for the Vader election in November, if you approve that and we go forward with it as one of the measures within the plan. If we take the proposed budget with a deficit of 14.9, add back in the things I've asked you for, then our general fund deficit would be 11.9 million. So things we've already done to impact this 26-27 budget. I've already talked about the stricter expenditure controls and enhanced budget monitoring. We'll continue to identify and review every vacancy that comes up, hoping or intending to fill it from within so we're not bringing in new employees. We developed a deferred maintenance prioritization framework, and we'll talk about how I want to fund that or how I recommend we fund it. We actually went to bat with the Texas School Safety Center and TEA, I guess back in January, maybe in December. You may recall that they gave safety money, but they restricted their safety money to certain things. Well, we were way ahead of their game. In 2015 and 2019, we installed our front door systems, we installed cameras, we installed the algo, the visitor access. We did all of those things, and we had done a lot of the fencing beforehand. So he wouldn't let us spend the money on anything else. And we went back to him and said, look, this is unreasonable. We've already done this work. Why are you penalizing me and not allowing me to get the money? And the gentleman said, look, you have some pre-award authority. If you will demonstrate to us that you paid for these improvements out of your bond program, we'll give you the money back and you put it in your bond program. So we have different pots of money, right? We have general fund, we have the health fund, we have debt service, we have child nutrition. This money is going back into capital projects. And so they've already given it to us. We have 3.3 million sitting there. And I have already issued a purchase order to Hellas to replace the 4 worst fields. So they started today at Ysleta High School with the remediation and the replacement of that turf. They will move to do Bel Air, Del Valle, and Riverside by August 9th. So they are moving rapidly to do that. I will tell you that that's all the money I have for turf replacement. So if we don't see the plan through that I'm going to walk you through in a moment, the other high schools that need it, which will be Hanks, Eastwood, and Parkland, will not get it. So if we can't agree that the plan is solid and it's how we want to move forward, I have to alert Hellas, hold it. We're not moving forward with the other half of the plan, which will impact their pricing, because right now they're saying, if we get the whole big thing, this is the pricing. If you back out of it, then it's going to cost you more. They do believe they can have all of it done by before the end of this calendar year. So every field would be replaced, every field would be addressed, as well as several of the tracks. So Bel Air is getting a new track, Hanks is getting a new track, Del Valle is getting a new track, and I'm doing it from memory. I think those are the 3 or 4 that are addressed.
So if we get this done, Ysleta will be able to have their season on their field.
If we get this done by August, so this money is going to Ysleta. Ysleta's field, right now Hellas is telling me that field will be finished by August 9th. So they may miss one or two games and practice,
right.
but they are going to be on their field for the rest of the football season.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have also identified debt refunding opportunities. So we have within the debt service fund money and bonds that we can refund of $160 million. So in August, I'll come back to you and say, I need an order to refund these bonds, which will generate $10 million to the debt service fund. So it's a $10 million savings there, allowing us to reduce the tax rate in the interest and sinking fund or the debt service fund. That gives us capacity in the overall tax rate because it's made up of maintenance and operations and INS, or debt service. As I mentioned earlier, we implemented the solar program. It was effective January 1. We've already recognized a reduction in our bills of $137,000. If you annualize that, we expect it to be about $411,000, and we only implemented it at 15 sites. So if El Paso Electric is amenable and leaves the plan open, we could perhaps extend the solar agreement to other campuses, especially given that I think I'm right, Ms. Priscilla, the rate 41 is gone. Is that? We still get rate 41 rates, but
Right.
that category is
not going to be subsidized for much longer. So, and so we're looking at what the results of that rate 41 intervention came out to be, and it looks like we may even get a discount for utility costs going back to July 1st, 2025. Yeah.
So we're working diligently with El Paso Electric to try to find ways to offset this 25% increase in fuel, in health, and utilities. And then you will also see on Wednesday's agenda a reimbursement resolution. This is part of the overall plan that says we're willing to issue maintenance tax notes in probably December. We're going to give you a parameters resolution which says that under Dr. De La Torre's leadership and mine, you're going to delegate the right or the responsibility to issue maintenance tax notes in December. The reimbursement resolution says you can reimburse the general fund for 60 days prior or 180 days future for anything you do under the maintenance tax notes. So for that long deferred maintenance list, if any of those hit the general fund, we can reimburse ourselves. So the Ysleta High School chiller parts and the labor required to fix that chiller can now be reimbursed if we approve the reimbursement resolution and authorize the issuance of maintenance tax notes. I will tell you, if you're not going to do this, Wednesday's the time to tell me, because I've got to pull Hellas and the rest of them and say, I'm not going to be able to reimburse myself, I need to stop. So it's a big decision on Wednesday. Then we've got an independent efficiency audit. So part of the VADER process requires that we have an independent authority come in and analyze our operational efficiency. So we have an opportunity here, and I welcome it. Tell us where we can be more efficient. Tell us where we can reduce cost. Tell us what we're doing well. Tell us where we can improve. But it's absolutely required to even have a VADER audit or a VADER election. And so you will be awarding to Moak Casey, I believe is the recommended vendor on Wednesday, this efficiency audit. And then we are monthly now watching cash flow to make sure that when we know we're not getting money from TEA in April or in August, how long are we able to operate on our own cash, and when will we need the payroll loan or the bridge loan? And I've already told you, in February, we're going to need it again. Until we can turn the tide completely, we will need these loans periodically to cover when we're not getting money from TEA. And then we have been evaluating contracts to eliminate any service duplication. And so by consolidating, and Frontline's a great one because it has HR, it has counseling, it has nursing, and it also has other functions, SPED functions, that now we're able to pull it all under one umbrella. And by doing so, we were able to reduce the cost of that contract. So what do we recommend next? I've already talked a lot about this, but let me just review these briefly. You already know that we have applied, and I don't know if you're aware, but we have been approved for the teacher incentive allotment. This is our data collection year. It won't go into place until next year. It's for math teachers from 4th through 8th, and Algebra 1. So we are starting small, making sure it works well, but the thing about the teacher incentive allotment, it's very much like the TRA, the teacher retention allotment, I believe is what that was called. It's a pass-through. So it's restricted, can't be used on operations, can't be used for utilities, can't be used for health care. It strictly flows through directly to the teachers who are selected or have achieved the designation under TIA. We are seeking Medicaid reimbursement for some of our services, which we have not previously been reimbursed for. So if you think about the one I'm most familiar with is on our buses, there's not only a special education bus driver, but there's a special education bus attendant. They are eligible for reimbursement from Medicaid, but it's difficult to do because you have to prove many things in order to be reimbursed by Medicaid. We have developed through our software team a program that we can use, and we have already started collecting the data so that we can receive reimbursement from Medicaid for those services. Obviously, we continue to pursue grants, and we make the most of the federal grants that we have. If it's eligible to be paid for from a federal grant and it's core, we put it in a federal grant. We're actively pursuing the sale of vacant campuses. We have one that should close, probably will close in August, would be my guess, and then we have another that I'm hopeful will be forthcoming. And then again, in August, I'll come back and ask you to approve the order to call for a voter-approved tax ratification election on the November ballot. I'll be frank, that's a hard time to go to ballot or to go to the voters. It's a midterm election. There is a referendum on the policies of the current administration, so it's a tough one. But if we are successful, it means an increase to revenue of about $5.5, almost $6 million. So it behooves us to try, but if we don't get it, we haven't included it in the budget. The revenue is not built in. So it would further reduce the deficit we talked about a moment ago by nearly $6 million. So instead of 11.9, it'd be down around 5.9. And then obviously we continue to look for operational efficiencies and cost recovery. As I mentioned, we welcome the efficiency audit that's coming or efficiency report that's coming because we think it will help us improve. You saw that last year we looked at the health fund. We knew it was in trouble. We restructured the health plans. We had for many, many years held employees completely harmless from any changes, and it was not sustainable. Our goal is to stabilize the health fund. I believe from the January through April report, it's better. Is it out of the hole yet? No, but given the substantive nature of the changes, I'm pleased with how it's performing. Can it do better? Yes. I think those freestanding ERs are hurting us, and we need to address it. We're going to continue monitoring cash flow. I will be back, as I mentioned, in February of 2027 for a TRAN, tax revenue and anticipation notes. Keep in mind that has to be paid in 1 year. It's always a 1-year term. You can't exceed 1 year. So it always has to be paid back. You'll see that we pledged our property tax revenues to support the TRAN we have now. And in February, all of that will be paid off through property tax revenues. We will evaluate every single vacancy and every requisition. I see them all now, and I'll tell you, it's a lot to review. And July 1st, when they first come in, it's a lot to review, but we look at every single one of them. We'll offer retirement incentives, looking for 2 different opportunities for early notice of retirement so we can plan around it. We'll look at consolidation opportunities and where we may have an opportunity for an underutilized facility to be maximized. So on Wednesday, I'll be asking you to approve a reimbursement resolution that will allow me to address the rest of the fields, the Ysleta High School chiller, and many other of those deferred maintenance needs. I want to work with our financial advisor because if it's possible, I want to issue in tranches. I would prefer not to issue the entire $65 million all at once because it gives us time to address them. I frankly would prefer to wait until they fail because we have provisions in place and we have the best maintenance and operations team in the state. We've been able to keep things running that should have died 5-7 years ago. I will ask you to authorize the refunding opportunity on the debt service side for those bonds that are callable, $160 million in bonds in August. Then we'll recognize a $10 million savings to debt service. I'm going to ask you with the reimbursement resolution to understand clearly that you have to do the maintenance tax notes in August if we're going to approve the reimbursement resolution, because otherwise there's nothing to reimburse with. If we do that, it'll protect the general fund from sudden expensive repairs or replacements that are going to further increase the deficit, harming your unassigned fund balance. Right now, I estimate, you saw that the need was roughly 71. I'm going to ask you for $65 million and have a repayment term of 10 to 15 years, most likely 15 years, but there will be some items like turf, which should be replaced every 7 years. Our turf is at 10 years. So we would have shorter terms for repayment of those assets that don't last 10 or 15 years. So the timeline. June, approve the reimbursement resolution to recover deferred maintenance expenses from the future sale of MTN's maintenance tax notes. Begin the turf replacement at Ysleta, Bel Air plus track, Del Valle, but I won't do the track until the fall, and Riverside High School turf. Repair and replace the Ysleta High School chiller, and then the efficiency audit begins. In August, we'll have the efficiency audit report, so they'll be back to report on it in August. You'll have to pass an order for the Vader election then. You'll authorize the refunding of the $160 million in voter-approved debt. You'll authorize the maintenance tax notes for $65 million, and we'll complete the football turf replacement at Eastwood, Hanks, plus a track, and Parkland High School. In the winter and spring, November, we would have the Vader election. We would complete the refunding during winter break. You may ask why winter break is preferred. So the reason we will call for the maintenance tax notes and the refunding in August is because I get 6 months to complete it. Well, nobody wants to work at Christmas. And so the supply of debt coming into the market that buyers can access is very low, which is great for us because it reduces our interest rates. And so we worked through Christmas with the financial advisor and the bond underwriters, and you'll authorize in August, but then we will probably sell at the Christmas break. We will complete the consolidation of the Academy and Thrive at Thrive in January 27, and then we'll need a short-term loan again in February with a one-year term. And with that, I'll take questions.
Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Ms. Cameron, for this presentation. Let me start by saying what we all know. We all know that education in Texas is ran by the state. We all know it's very challenging that way with unfunded state mandates, confusing, unfair, inadequate formulas that give us our funding. And, of course, the policies of Greg Abbott, which is hurting public school and not funding us adequately. We all know this. But that doesn't excuse us from being fully transparent, having good communication, and following proper procedure. And by proper procedure, I don't mean to do what is easiest or that it meets the legal requirements. I mean the proper thing to do for the benefit of the community and the employees we serve. So, with that said, I don't understand why we received the proposed budget that we did with a $15 million deficit. I believe it's your job to bring us what you recommend, what you think is the best. At the last meeting, you said we must do something to replenish. I said, that means we need a budget with a surplus. You said yes. And then you bring us a proposed budget that nearly depletes the unassigned fund balance. We'll do so before the end of the year. And then you ask us to meet here and to figure it out ourselves. I think that's very inappropriate. I think we should have got the budget that you fiscally think is appropriate. I'm also very concerned with revenue projections, and for good reason. I think the revenue projections are extremely aggressive. For starters, you're assuming sales. We have zero idea. We don't know that those properties are going to sell. And am I to interpret that you're assuming the sale of a property of a campus that's still currently operating?
No, that's not correct.
So the projection you're getting of the sales, was that $13 million?
10.2.
$10.2 million in sales, they're from properties already currently vacant.
Yes.
Okay. And even with, so everything you did to bring down the deficit, it's still leaving us with $15 million.
And if we revise it further with the recommendations I made this evening, it would be 11.9. But yes, sir, that's correct.
The other question is involving enrollment, right? We know about the declining birth rates. It's not going to get better. I asked last time, does our staffing, is that appropriate to the number of students that we have? And the answer that Ms. Russell gave was, if we look at it by campus. I feel like those were very intentionally picked words. What if we just look at the whole district with the number of students we have and the number of teachers we have and overall employees? Is that correct? Because my understanding is our payroll is taking 88% of the entire budget?
I estimated 87, but probably with rounding, it's 87 to 88%.
And the recommendation is it shouldn't be more than 82%, right?
Yes, sir?
So are we overstaffed?
So if we looked at it as one big campus with everybody being in one campus and having teachers not taking into account their certification area, then we would be 900 teachers over. But given that the state of Texas requires that a teacher be certified in the specialized area in which they're going to teach, and that we have feeder patterns throughout the city of El Paso, it would be impossible for us to staff based on the number of students as a whole.
Could we do it if we consolidated more campuses?
If we consolidated campuses, we could cut staffing, yes, sir.
Am I reading it wrong that our expenditures in payroll continue to rise year after year?
You could see on that graph that it went from 308, I believe, to 351 over the 10-year period. 305.8 to 357.
But the percentage of the budget that it's consuming continues to increase.
Because as the budget comes down, the percentage, we've never had a layoff. When we consolidate, we absorb. No one has been let go from this district ever.
But the recommendation is that we operate at 82%, yet we continue to increase the percentage of the budget that payroll has.
Because your overall cost.
It doesn't matter what the reason is, I just want to know.
I'm
that-
giving you the mathematical, I'm sorry, but you're right. The percentage of the budget that it consumes is increasing because as the budget decreases, but you don't reduce personnel cost, it takes up a bigger proportion of your total expenses.
I think projections are very important, and the decision we have to make, the projections you've made regarding local revenue in the past years have been drastically off. I think last year you underestimated, and then,
Only on the property tax.
right. I mean,
But
they've been pretty level the past, 3 years, right? And now you're projecting what it's been the past 3 years. I don't know why we didn't do that in the beginning. I don't need to do any math or formulas to have made that guess. That's what I would have just done. It's been the past 3 years. It's probably going to be the same, instead of making these crazy projections here.
So take into consideration two factors. Number one, there's a legislative session every other biennium, and they always change funding streams. They've given us different homestead exemptions, dramatically changing our property tax revenue, and said, we'll hold you harmless. So if they're holding me harmless, I should be getting the same amount of revenue, but we're not. And during the years of COVID, for 3 straight years, they said, we don't care what your enrollment is, and we don't care what your ADA is. We're going to give you the same level of funding pre-COVID. So, I mean, I don't know how you estimate that if they tell you we're going to give you the same amount. There's no revenue projection in that. Last year, they changed it again and said, we're going to give you the TRA, we're going to give you all this money. But in fact, what they did was just shift it from state revenue to property tax. And yet they still didn't hold us harmless on the property tax side. So the best we can do is use the information they give us and put it in the budget. If it's wrong, or it has to be recategorized, which is all you're seeing, instead of being state revenue, it was property tax revenue this year. It's just a change in category because they didn't tell us where it was going to go. So for 3 years, no revenue estimates at all. We were held harmless by the state because of COVID. And then you went from a loss of 369 per year to a 2,000 student loss in COVID to this dramatic, at 3 times, so 300% increase. Who would have imagined that's real? No one. No one in the state did. And so, yes, the revenue estimates have been off, but there are a lot of factors going in there that we don't have control over.
I'd like to point out that during the past 3 budget meetings, I said we shouldn't be so optimistic. And everyone, oh, no, well, let's be optimistic and let's just hope. That's a terrible mistake, and we shouldn't be making the same mistakes again. Also, regarding the $11 million that we lost from the state that we were supposed to be held harmless for, I asked for the correspondence between the district and the comptroller of how this happened. You say, we didn't make a mistake, it was them. Great. I asked for the correspondence, I never got it. Why is that?
Actually, it was provided to you, sir. It was within the documents I gave you on the Google Drive. And the only documentation I got is a summary of finance. So the state publishes a summary of finance once every 2 weeks, roughly. On February 6th, it was this amount. On March 12th, it's this amount. There's no explanation except out of TASB, TASBO. We have correspondence with the state comptroller, with Senator Blanco. We have correspondence with Commissioner Morath, but there was no correspondence to us from the
So
comptroller.
that one letter was, there was no back and forth?
There is no letter to us. The comptroller didn't give us anything. They just adjusted the money.
No, there was no red flags, there wasn't ever the thought that this can't be right? Nobody else had that thought or questions? The hold's harmless?
I think across the state, people have that question. Commissioner Morath indicated, yes, I'm hearing about it. But I'll tell you, we were the first to bring it to CAD. We met with CAD that week on March 19th and said, what's going on? Do you know what's happening? And CAD is saying, well, it's the comptroller, and the comptroller is saying it's the CAD, but nobody's got a real answer about what's happening and why. We actually had to work with the different people and our own internal staff to figure out what really happened by looking at our own individual residential values, going property tax by property tax line. So for every residential property in this district, we analyzed what happened. What happened to their freeze loss? Where did it go? Did it get lost to homestead, or did it get lost just because now they owe less? But no correspondence came from the comptroller. It's an adjustment to the summary of finance. They don't owe us any explanations by their view.
The deficit you're recommending tonight assumes property sales. That may not happen. Is there, and even so, even with all that work, let's say those sales do go through, that means we're going to be left with $5 million in our unassigned fund balance. If everything happens perfectly, I mean, nobody sees a problem with this. This is the best recommendation that you can bring us that is going to leave us $5 million in our unassigned fund balance. If that, I mean, it's probably going to be depleted before then. We need to take out another loan, and we're going to take out another loan, and we're going to take out another loan. That $10 million from the sales only, it's a one-time fix. So that means our structural deficit is what, $21 million?
At least.
Guys, you guys don't see the writing on the wall? We're going to get kicked out. You know, and then what? Who cares? We leave, the state comes in, they do everything they need to do without any community input, without any sensitivity. They're just going to do it. Because why? Because we didn't want to face the music? Because we wanted to keep putting it off? And then when we do have to do it, it has to be very sudden and without notice. You know, you're talking about consolidating, you know, one campus, which I agree, it makes financial sense. But my problem is you're sneaking this into the budget. This should be a separate item with public notice and a public hearing, not snuck into the budget like this. So I'll tell you right now what I'm going to be recommending on Wednesday is that we delay the vote, we postpone it until June 29th, and if you have further recommendations to make besides what's been here to bring down the deficit, you know, I'd like to hear them now so that we can make that public notice, have that public hearing, vote on it as a separate item, and not just put it into the budget and get it done. The public deserves that, parents deserve that, and the teachers deserve that.
Mr. Ramos.
If we were to close, I'm not done. If we were to close a campus suddenly, then there's a lot of questions that come with that regarding teachers, parents, and the possible loss of enrollment. We can't assume that every student we lose, especially if it's a special school, is going to enroll into Ysleta. They might pick a charter school or get one of those vouchers to go to a private school. I think the writing's been on the wall for at least 3 years. And if we were going to talk about closing campuses or consolidating them, we should have been doing that for over a year. And we should have been involving the community and parents and using that as a recruitment opportunity to make sure that even though we're closing a particular campus, we don't lose them. So I'm very disappointed with this, where we're at today. It's not just the state, it's not just declining birth rates, it's the decisions that we all have made. So I think we need more recommendations. I don't think we've done enough, especially considering the structural deficit is $28 million. We're only going to have 5 in the balance. I'd like to hear either from you or from my colleagues what recommendations you all like to make, and then you need to consider that we should delay the vote, postpone the vote until June 29th.
Well, I'd like to hear your recommendations.
That's the job of the CFO. She gave us her recommendations, and I don't think it's good enough. If you have a recommendation, I'd like to hear it.
Well, I'd like to hear yours first.
No, I don't have it. I'm hearing for
I
you.
got some.
I'm going with her recommendations, but you're stating all these other things, but you're not stating what we need to do.
Okay, it's very obvious that there needs to be more campus consolidation and a reduction in force. I know that terrifies you all to say because of the political things
Just
that
asking.
happen, but it needs to be said and it needs to be addressed. And we can't do these things last minute, and we can't wait for the state to just come in and do it. I had asked you for a list of every campus and the savings that we would get by closing that campus, what the yearly would be, and for the enrollment of every campus, and I didn't get that. How can I make a recommendation without that information?
I told her not to give it to you.
Well, that is a big mistake.
No, it's not.
I completely disagree.
President Bustillos, the budget that we have brought to you and that we're recommending to you is the budget that we will recommend.
Understood. And that's why I wanted your recommendations, so I could kind of see which ones, and that's what you said, closing schools down and reduction of force?
Yes, because this is, in my conversations with the internal auditor and with the CFO, they say that's the only mathematical way that we can do it. And as she said in the last meeting, well, I don't want to go on the record. What do you think she didn't want to go on the record for? It was that. But you all make me say it. This was strategy. You didn't want to make the recommendation. This was political strategy so that you can say, well, we didn't recommend it. It was the board. It was Trustee Hernandez. When you know that the responsible thing to do would have been to make a recommendation that would at the very least not give us a deficit and let us deal with the tough decisions, but at least come with it in the recommendation. I mean, you did it with the Cesar Chavez Academy, right? You put that in there. Why wouldn't you put other recommendations in there if you know it's needed if we're going to have a surplus budget?
Because the primary reason you save money on a consolidation is with staff. And staff are all under contract. So I can't do anything to absorb those staff. I don't have enough consolidation opportunities where I can absorb all the staff who are already under contract.
I know, because we've been put in a very tough situation because of the decisions that have been made by this board over the past few years. And its refusal to address the continuing structural deficit that we face year after year. I've also asked for the forecasts for future fiscal years and to show us some kind of plan that addresses that. But everything that's been presented, all the documents that you gave me show there's no way to do it. That's why that plan wasn't given to me, wasn't given to the board. Because it's not going to happen, guys. It's all going to be gone, and the state's, it's not hypothetical. It's been happening all over Texas. And the news headlines make it seem like we're doing better than YISD. We're not. Despite their huge deficit, they still have plenty in their fund balance to cover it all. We don't. We got to take out another loan, 2 loans in one fiscal year, and we all want to pretend like everything is fine. This is the best budget that you could present us? You know, I'll be a no vote. And I'm asking, if we can do better, you can't give us this now, and then 2 days later, we got to vote yes. And just take your word for it, given the financial situation that we're in and given where it's heading. It's irresponsible. And well, what can we do about it now? At the very, very least, we can postpone the vote until June 29th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Mr. Haggerty?
I've got questions and recommendations. First, I want to thank you guys for the work that you have put into it. I do see that there has been effort made. I do agree with Mr. Hernandez, there could be more effort made. For the simple fact that we are Ysleta and we're not EPISD, so we've got a better brain trust. And we always figure it out. We figure it out together. So please don't take anything I say as aggressive or trying to put blame on somebody where we shoulda, woulda, coulda, whatever. This is where we're at, and we need to figure out how to fix it with what we have right now. My background is in technology, so I don't mean to single out technology. It's just the area that I'm most familiar with. So when you do say things like, it was on page 5. Let me find exactly what it was.
Eliminate contract duplication.
There we go, thank you. Right away, we have, and again, not to single out technology, but I happen to know technology. We have
Oh, that's old.
4 different programs that we're paying 6 figures on 3 of those programs for disaster recovery, and one of them is specifically for disaster recovery. The Cloud Unity that we're paying $254,000 on, just for disaster recovery. YISD does disaster recovery. It does backups, it does recovery platforms. Electro storage that we're paying for has built-in replication capabilities. VMware, vSphere is for replication and for disaster recovery. We have 3 other programs that do disaster recovery. Why are we paying another $254,000 for that duplicate service? We're looking at, we just passed that resolution saying, here teachers, this is what the board thinks of you, and this is how much we appreciate you that we're putting it into a written document. And then we turn around and say, as long as nobody in your family dies, and as long as you don't run out of sick leave, we appreciate you. But if something like that was to happen, we don't appreciate you that much, and we would rather take that money and spend it on duplicate software than we would on our own employees. And I'm not comfortable with that one bit. If we were to look at our substitute teacher spend, and how much that is, I'm not sure because I haven't seen that number, versus what the substitute teacher spend would be if our teachers were coming to work happy, they weren't taking mental health days because I've had enough. And then not only that, my parents in hospice, I know the days are coming up. I'm not going to have my 5 days, I'm only getting 3. How much would we save in substitute costs? And how happier would our teachers be? And how much better would they provide for our students if we just make them feel appreciated? We put it in words, but we don't show it in our actions. If we turn around and say, we're going to take $3 million of those dollars that we need, and we're going to take it from you guys. 2.7 from the health insurance that's going to increase, plus another 300,000 from their bereavement and their sick leave sharing, whatever it's called. Thank you. There's other places that money can come from. One of them being $6 million for HVAC conversions for the field houses. If the 2.1 million in roofs is a safety issue, then we definitely need to address that. If it's too hot in the field house, then don't hang out in the field house. Until such time that we can afford $6 million to go do that conversion. Why would we spend $6 million now when we haven't spent it before? So it's not that it's a dire need right now. I understand it's a comfort issue, but it's the field house. If there's offices in there, it sounds like none of our schools are at capacity. We probably have an office inside where there's refrigerated air that those folks could move their office to, so they have refrigerated air versus sitting in a hot field house. The 2.7 million was just for premium increases, right? That's not for the copays and other things that,
No, so let me clarify that because it's a good point, and I'm glad you raised it. The 2.7 is the district's additional contribution to the health fund. But keep in mind, we're paying the claims anyway. So why duplicate it in the 2.7? Just leave our contribution to the health fund, which is $642 per employee per month to the health fund. Really, we're just going to pay those claims no matter what. So the need to put $50 more per employee per month is not required. I'm going to pay the claims. So that's really a reduction to our spending. It's not something that penalizes the employee or affects their premium, copays, or anything else. We're still going to require plan changes regardless of what I do with that extra $50 per employee per month. The inflationary costs across the nation and even in our own area are such that probably every year, if you want to protect premium so that employees are not paying more in their monthly premium, you're going to have to do plan changes instead. And so that's what we're proposing. So those it affects are only the ones using it, right? So if they need their health insurance, then they may pay a little bit more on their copay. They may pay a little bit more in their total out-of-pocket, but they're not going to pay more each month for their premium. That's the goal in the way we structured this particular recommendation.
I got you. But it's not a little bit more. It's like $2,500 a month more for the gold plan.
Not $2,500 a month.
I'm sorry, $2,500 for the deductible.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry I didn't bring that presentation up here with me, but you can see it. It's the, thank you, Ms. Bobby. So is that alternative 1 or alternative 2?
1?
Alternative
2,
1?
I think, is worse, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
Wasn't 2 worse?
So alternative 1 leaves the gold plan deductible at $2,500. The out-of-pocket goes from $5,000 to $7,500. If we go to alternative 2, which I'm going to tell you is my recommendation because that leaves you a slight surplus in the health fund, then still the deductible for individual is $2,500, for family is $7,500. So it increases the family deductible from $5,000 to $7,500.
And the coinsurance.
Yes, sir. Coinsurance, the in-network, out-of-network, the copay on primary care, specialist, and
$1,000 to
freestanding
go to the emergency room?
emergencies. Sorry?
And $1,000 to go to the emergency room?
So
that's a
if you go
freestanding-
to
sorry,
one of the
sorry.
freestanding
Yeah, those freestandings
instead of
are
one of the
horrible.
Providence facilities, then yes.
And it sounds like you're already aware of it, but if we could figure out a campaign to make sure everybody understands
I haven't
going
seen
to a
it.
freestanding emergency room is like taking a loan from a pawn shop.
And we are working on that. Yes, sir.
But regarding a lot of the maintenance and things, if these can be deferred even farther, there's some that can't, I understand that, but I think there's some that certainly can. I know it's not a very popular position to take, but when I went to Eastwood, we didn't have turf, and we played just fine. So if the turf isn't there, it's not going to hurt my feelings. But for some of these HVAC conversions, as much as I would love for everything to be refrigerated air, we don't have it.
So I don't want that to be on the record. Any student-occupied facility has refrigerated air. There's only one campus in the district that does not, but that was what the 2019 bond accomplished. What you're seeing for replacement or conversion is where we have an air-cooled or water-cooled refrigerated air system, chiller system, that was probably installed in 2000, 2004, and is now beyond its life. So I don't like chillers, to be frank, because they cost $500,000 to $1 million to replace. I would rather go in and do like we've done at many other campuses and put an RTU. So when you talked about the field houses, you're absolutely right. I would not just go in and convert those to refrigerated air. And in fact, we've said no. There are people that office in there, but for the most part, you expect to sweat in the field house. The reason I would convert is because I have to redo the roof. And when you take off the roof is the time to convert from a swamp to a refrigerated air. But it's a low priority comparatively. When the roof gets bad enough that it leaks continuously and I just can't repair it anymore, then I would tell you, if you're going to take the roof, replace the units now. Convert to refrigerated air.
I understand that makes sense if we had the money to do it.
Agreed.
And if that's all it's doing is leaking, then let's buy some tarps and protect our equipment that's in there. But why do we need to keep it air conditioned? And I guess that's the point I'm trying to make is I think there's more savings that could be in there if we looked harder. I appreciate all the work that's already been done, but I think there is still more in there that we can.
So if I may, please be clear, the deferred maintenance is not in the budget, but it's coming. And so I'm trying to protect your general fund because Mr. Hernandez is right. We're going to be out of fund balance. We're continuously hitting it. In the early 2000s or in the early teens, it was okay because we had sufficient fund balance and you would use it one time. We would go take care of a major project and then we would replenish the fund balance, but we're not in that position anymore. So if one of these catastrophically fails, and I said earlier, I would prefer to wait until it fails to replace it. But regardless, it's either going to hit the general fund or I'm going to hit long-term debt, 10 to 15-year debt, so it doesn't hurt the general fund.
And then I'm still unclear why the board budget has increased as high as it has, and the superintendent's office has had an increase of 6 figures.
I don't think it increased by 6 figures, and I don't have the information up here with me.
Pull it up
But
real quick.
back to, so in 2026, we started a new contract with Aetna. That is probably one of our most expensive contracts to write. It goes through almost 6 months of review and revision and back and forth between Aetna and us. And so that is a large expense that hit the legal claims or the legal fees in that budget. And so inside the board's budget are all the legal fees. They're not necessary, of course, they're not generated by the board, but they are to protect the board and the district. And so that's the account where they hit. And the MSA or the Master Service Agreement with Aetna is one of the most expensive that we negotiate every 3 to 5 years, depending on how long we go.
The Board of
We
Trustees
also
budget
had, I
was-
believe, the Linebarger. The Linebarger team does our property appeal, our property value study. We only pay them if they're successful. And this year, I believe we got $3 million back because of their efforts on our behalf protesting the property value. So remember, if the state overvalues our property, they give us less money. So we fight with them and say, no, the property value's wrong, drop it to where it should be, then they have to give me more money. And this year they gave us, I believe, $3 million. I think our fee to Linebarger is 10% of what they save us. And so they only pay us if they win. They don't appeal every year because it's not beneficial to us. But when they do, then we owe them their 10% fee.
It's 150,000 is the Linebarger?
That may be last year's, Ms. Boleyn, is that correct? That's for last year's study? So we
So
got
then
$1.5
that-
million last year before. And 3, was it 3 this year, Boleyn? Yes. Thank you.
It was employee allowances in the superintendent's office. It was 79,000 and it went to 231,000.
Ms. Boleyn, you may have to look at that one. I don't have it in front of me. I think it has to do with, it's a reclassification, isn't it?
Correct, it's a reclassification between the employee allowances for the payment of board-approved and under the contract for Dr. De La Torre. And so it's just a function of how we record it so that we are able to report it properly to the IRS and on his W-2 and make those payments. So if you look at it, it's just a reclassification between one account number and the other. So if you look at the line item on the 199-4160-139 and the 199-4161-49. So if you if you add those two account numbers, they equal the amount that was budgeted in the employee allowances. And all those are under contract and approved by the board.
So then why did it increase when we didn't?
It didn't increase, it just moved from one account to another account. The amounts that she gave you add up to almost exactly the same. I remember seeing the difference. It's a nominal difference. Belen, what page is that in the Adobe PDF that we gave him?
Page 4.
And that's in the line item detail, correct? So in your line item detail report we gave you on the USB drive, page 4, and then how far down the page?
Top of the page, under employee allowances, 231,000.
Okay, and the two lines that add up to that below?
They move over to the account number 199-4161-49 called other payments.
So instead of other payments, it should have been recorded in employee allowances, and they moved it there.
You said it was 131?
Yes, sir.
The employee allowances are 231.
Do you mind if she comes and shows you?
I don't have it in front of me.
Oh, you,
I have notes, but I don't have the.
So if you take.
Don't
this
get comfortable,
account,
Dr. Chacon.
employee allowances, this amount. If you take these amounts, it's broken out into this account, other payments. You take this amount, it equals this amount. So it's just broken out so that we can report it for IRS purposes.
So 151 and 139? That doesn't equal 231?
It doesn't, they're off a little bit.
By like 50,000?
No, no, it's 220,
So
so
it's-
it's 80, it's 230.
That's 290, 139?
79
Plus
and
151?
151 is 230.
What was this? I see.
It's just the way we categorize it so that we can, when we actually pay, we can actually report it properly.
And what was it the year before?
For the year-to-date actuals, the same. Yeah, that's it. The year-to-date.
But I thought we reduced.
You were actually reduced this amount. So this amount. You went from here to here. That's what you all approved last year.
Gotcha.
And that's the amount.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Mr. Haggerty.
Any more questions?
Yes,
Mr. Dwyer?
thank you. Thank you, Ms. Cameron, for the presentation. Do we know what our average daily attendance rate was for the entire year in our district?
I'm very proud of that. 94 point what, Dr. Chacon? She's coming back. I think 94.2?
94.2, if I remember
I
the
think
exact
that's right.
numbers, right?
Which is
Our-
outstanding.
Our goal was to end at 94, and we ended right where we thought we would.
Okay. On page, I'm looking at classroom teachers by year, on page 19, and it says full-time equivalent FTE allocation. And then at the bottom of the page, it has 2025, 2026, and then it has 2026, 2027, and it has high schools, 25.5 students to one teacher, and it's it stayed the same from 2025 to 2026. My question is, these ratios, 25 to 1, and then the elementary schools, pre-K to fourth, I understand why the class sizes are smaller. It's very important at that young age, 22 to 1. Are these numbers mandated by the state? Or does the district decide on how many students we're going to put in these classrooms? Because when I was teaching, it was an elective science course, but I was never surprised when I had 35 students in my classroom, and I had to go find chairs. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Dwyer. The 22 to 1 ratio is a requirement of the state for pre-K through 4th grade.
Okay,
From 5th through 12th grade, the district does have discretion.
okay. Just checking on that. And then one more. I think this is kind of on the same line as Mr. Hernandez. I would like the capacity at each school, high school, middle schools, and elementary schools, and I'd like to compare, let's say, the capacity to how many students are enrolled at each of our campuses, because I keep hearing the word consolidate, and that we have to make some tough decisions. If you'd be able to get that to me, Ms. Camber.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, can you get that to the entire board as a BC?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Questions? I have one. I don't think you touched enough about the inflation, especially with the gas prices and all that. Can you kind of touch where we've gone on inflation as far as utilities versus electric, gas, and then water, and then what it's costing our fuel, what's our cost on our fuel, what it's gone up?
So we have a great deal. Sorry, I'm scrolling really fast and I think I'm flipped. There we go. So we have a great deal on fuel because we buy it competitively, right? So it's cheaper for us than it is out in the gas pump for you and me. But it's still very expensive and it's still tied to, I think, it's not called Opus. What's the price, Mario? And it's based off of the index in Midland, Odessa. Anyway, so we negotiate the contract. It's a variable up, so it's a percentage above whatever the rate is from the fields, if you will, in Midland, Odessa, from the refinery that comes here. And so, but regardless, across health, gas, water, electric, fuel for buses, the rate of inflation since 2019 is about 25%.
On a 2019 budget?
Mm-hmm. And so if you think back about what the state gave us, and I know this seems like an excuse, and I don't mean for it to be, the TRA and the SSRA passed directly through, right? There was no discretion to those. They raised the basic allotment that hasn't been touched since 2019 from $61.60 to $62.15, $55 to cover all of that inflationary cost on the overhead. We don't have a prayer of doing that. I'm sorry, there's no way. And the fact that we've been able to reduce our overhead from 51.4 to 41.1 in that 10-year period is remarkable because prices haven't come down. It hasn't gone the other way. It's continued to go up.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead. Yes, Ms. Woodruff.
So we talked about the policy changes, and we talked about the bereavement leave policy, and we talked about the purchase day policy. Where does the last thing that's on that BC, the payment for accumulated leave upon retirement, where does that fall?
It's also in that same policy. So we've had several iterations of that particular piece, and Ms. Bobby may have to help me because she remembers this. It's carved in her brain. And we're trying to actually make it better for those who retire early. So I'll let her explain.
So currently, the way the policy reads is this: if an employee works without a break for the district for 15 consecutive years and leaves the district and retires from the district and fulfills their entire contract from start to finish, they could take advantage of half of their accrued time up to 45 days. The way we're revising that portion of the policy is now if they complete a semester. So if they work the entire fall semester, they would qualify for the payout if they meet the other criteria as well. And then if they complete the full year, the second semester, they would still qualify for it as they do now.
So, and the cost to this, even though it does help employees, is included in our budgeting?
That is my understanding, yes. And it also assists the district in ensuring that we can take care of staffing without having to, given the contracts are currently in place.
Thank you. That's my question.
My
Yes,
pleasure.
ma'am.
Any other
Thank
questions?
you, Ms. Bobby.
Yes, Mr. President. You said there was a campus without air conditioning?
Yes.
Which campus is that?
It's Young Women's Leadership Academy. I tried to move them to Rio Bravo for refrigerated air, and they declined.
Oh, okay. What was the situation at Ysleta High School? There was something mentioned at the last
We
meeting?
have redundant chillers at almost every high school, and both chillers are down. So we basically put one in, a substitute chiller, to keep the school running through the end of the school year. The parts are under manufacture, but it was a 6-week lead time, no, 6-month lead time to get the part manufactured. And so we're running it on a borrowed chiller. but
And
it
they're still
has to
going to be running
repaired.
on that when they go back to school?
No,
It's going to be fixed?
that's the intent. We're waiting on the part, but yes. But that's
Okay.
also coming out of your operating budget, and I'm trying to address that. So what Dr. De La Torre just handed you is by learning community, the campus capacity. So you can see the very first sheet in front of you is Bel Air Learning Community, and they're in alphabetical order. Bel Air High School student capacity is 2,838. They serve grades 9 through 12, and then you have 12 years of data on enrollment based on PEEM snapshot. So at Bel Air High School, their 12-year trend is a decline of 1.5%. They are currently utilizing 66% of the campus with an enrollment of 1,694. You can see that same information for every campus, including the trend, including the capacity, and the utilization rate. So on Bel Air, you can see that Loma Terrace is built for 1,298 students. I will tell you, till I'm blue in the face, that's too big for an elementary school. But a lot of people that designed for us in the old days were from Dallas and Fort Worth, and they thought that was the size those campuses should be. Today, our campuses like that, our elementary campuses, are typically built for no more than 800. Some of them are closer to 1,000. Middle schools around 1,600 to 1,800, high schools 2,000 to 2,400. So you had asked me about what is the utilization. Well, you have to take two things into consideration. What's the capacity? Is the campus growing? And can it receive a consolidation? So on Loma Terrace, if you notice, it would be a challenge. You couldn't consolidate Loma Terrace at North Loop or at Sageland. You could take North Loop and move them to Loma Terrace. They would fit there. So it is a multivariate analysis. There are some others. So
Well, I'll say
through-
this, if you don't mind, I think this is excellent information, and I'm very grateful. This is going to be helpful. But one thing I think is missing is the operational costs for each campus. In other words,
It's people. Your utilities are $250,000. It's teachers, staff, administration. That's the cost.
right. So that's part of the equation. So I want to know the operational costs of the campus, because by consolidating a campus, we're only really saving the operational costs, right? We would need to actually have
Historically, that's true, yes, because we've always absorbed in a consolidation. We have placed them.
So if we're going to be making those type of decisions, and if I could make a recommendation, in order for me to make a recommendation, I would need these numbers here, so that's good. Operational costs, and also number of employees, especially teachers, but I'm guessing all employees. And then we'd have to see what consolidation looks like. So this is great, but, I mean, we should have been
Mr. Hernandez.
having this kind of conversation about a year ago. I have another question. On the football fields, who is the final authority that determines whether a football field is playable or not?
So we do GMAX testing every year to make sure a field is safe to play on. But the life of a field is set by the manufacturer, and they say 7 years. We're at 10, but we take extremely good care
Who
of
is the
it.
final authority that gets to make that decision?
On whether it's safe,
Yeah.
I would say that's us, based on GMAX testing.
So technically, we could play on the field. I mean, we just did a graduation at Ysleta High School. I asked you point blank, what's wrong with the field?
I was under the impression you were kidding because it was in terrible shape.
Ysleta is not safe.
That's
to
not what
play.
you told me then. It didn't sound like you were kidding. So
No,
now you
it's
want
not-
to
I
say
thought
that
you were
thought I was
kidding. No one could be that blind. That field was in terrible shape. I thought you were being sarcastic.
No, I'm not being sarcastic.
Okay, well, that field is damaged even worse than any other field. And yeah, we determine when we think it's time to replace the surface on the basis of making sure that it's safe and secure for our students.
So, Mr.
Can you
Hunt,
give me the analysis and the testing points and all that was done that made the determination
No.
that that field was?
yes, sir.
I just look at it. She can give you the one that the professional uses.
Yes, so I brought in a third-party engineer completely independently and asked them to gauge the field, because what we were hearing from the athletes and the coaches are, there's something wrong with this field. So the engineer came in, I'll be happy to show the pictures. They went out with tape measures and levels and showed us also, and then they took, I think, 25 additional borings to show us where the clay was holding water and it was causing berms. So as athletes are running down the field and they pivot or they turn quickly, they lose stabilization because the field shifts under them because of the water and the clay that's in that field. So I do have an independent engineer's report on that.
And for the record, it was very obvious that I wasn't kidding, and you didn't answer me like I was kidding. You answered me very matter of fact. So, you know, I already know what the political spin is going to be on my no vote, but the whole reason for my concern is to protect our students from having to sit in a campus that doesn't have proper air conditioning and that we're having to do temporary fixes. I'm very grateful that the football field at Ysleta High School is being addressed first. My learning community, everybody that's involved with Ysleta High School is going to be very happy and excited about that. But I believe you said every field needs to be done. And I'm not just concerned for my learning community, but I'm concerned for the entire district. I'm concerned that, you know, it could be another campus next time that the air conditioning goes out and we don't have any money to fix it. We're trying to keep every campus from closing. We're trying to save every job, and I think that's admirable. But we need to realize the consequence is kids not being able to play on their home football field, and kids sitting without air conditioning. That's just 2 examples. I'm sure there's many more. We have a lot of deferred maintenance that needs to be addressed. That's where my head is at. Certainly not certainly not a want to close schools or to see some of our teachers go. That's the last thing any of us want. But guys, the state of Texas is going to do it for us anyways if we don't do it. I'd rather at least us be in full control of those decisions. You know, Mr. Dwyer asked you for something and you said, sure, you got it. I asked you for that a long time ago. So, you know, I think my frustration is very obvious. When anybody in the public can see, you know, we play these political games, these strategies. Let's not involve the community. Let's just do what we do. We know the decisions that are right. I never agreed with that. And we have to do better. And if you all want me on board, then we need the information that Mr. Dwyer and myself asked for.
Mr. Hernandez.
Yes, sir.
Just more information. You asked about budgets for each school. It's
The operating
yeah, it's
costs
in
and the
here
number
on
of
page-
teachers.
On this one, it's on page 27, proposed general fund expenditure budgets. It's on page 27 and 28 for all of our schools. This one?
Oh, on which book?
So we have proposed general fund expenditure budgets for all of our schools.
Right. And what about number of teachers? And actually, just all employees?
It has the salaries for
Right,
each.
but I want to know number of humans. And thank you, Trustee Dwyer, for showing me the page that the operating costs are on.
Mr.
Would we be
Hernandez,
able to get that?
Mr. Hernandez, I can get you the number for this school year, but we're still working on closing positions that are no longer necessary. So it'll be based on this school year's numbers, and then as we finish our deletions, what happens is because employees remain on the payroll, even if they've resigned from the district and the position will be closed, they get paid through June 30th, so they won't fall off of our report until then. But I can give you current status for this.
Yeah, that would be great. When can you get me that?
I can get it for you by tomorrow.
Fantastic. We also need to remember, we're not looking at a one-year fix, guys. This is yearly structural deficit that's not being addressed. So it's like, well, we made it through this year. We're not supposed to be making decisions that way. We're supposed to be taking into account what's going to happen over the next 5 years. And we're doing nothing right now to fix that. And we're being asked as volunteer trustees, most of us have full-time jobs. I don't have a staff to help me. I don't have an office here or any resources. But I'm being asked with less than 48 hours to continue to review more information, and then I'm the guy that's supposed to make the recommendation. With all due respect, Ms. Cambria, I think you're the one that's supposed to make the recommendation and let us deal with the fallout of the politics.
I have 14.9 reduced to 11.9.
That's not good enough.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Hagerty?
Do you know more or less how much money we brought in through grants?
Ms. Belen, can you get that out of the financials, please? I'm not sure your microphone is on, ma'am.
Thank you. For the fiscal year, for 25-26, our federal funds totaled,
Not federal funds, but like grants that we applied for,
Like
like the
competitive
competitive
grants?
grants?
oh, competitive. Some of them, I wouldn't be able to, I can provide you a breakdown, but I don't have that information available at this very moment.
The reason I'm asking is, I know historically, the grants department was set up in a way where teachers looking to get things into the classroom, things like that, they were set up to be able to help those teachers do that stuff.
Those still
And
exist.
that's my question is,
They are still able to do that.
how well utilized is that? And is that something where we could, if we were to make an investment anywhere, would we see a significant return on investment that would then help out the situation that we're in, if we're able to bring in more money through grants, if we can't rely on state funds or federal funds?
I think that's certainly an opportunity to pursue, and it's one of the items that we listed.
Where is it?
In revenue optimization on,
It's 26? Oh, no, that
well,
was
this thing
deferred
doesn't go as
maintenance.
fast as I want to go. Let me see.
40
I think it's
something?
39.
39? No.
Nope. It's under what we've already
go.
done.
Page 40.
Oh, it's on page 40,
It just says grants.
yes. Because the federal grants are entitlements. You get those, they're based on U.S. Department of Education, they just come to us. There's no competition for those. So when we say grants, we're not competing for the USDOE. Those just come, these are competitive grants. Let's pursue as many as we can. We just received a CREED grant that will help fund a liaison between EPCC and the district smoothing the pathway, if you will, between career tech students. Is that right, Dr. Chacon? She can speak more fluently to it than I can.
Good evening. It provides the opportunity for a liaison to work between us and EPCC. As you know, for your CCMR bonus outcomes money, that's money that is extra money, but the kids have to enroll immediately upon completion of high school into a university, trade school, or community college in order for us to activate that bonus money. So the intent here is to work with this liaison to get our kids to actually not just apply, but show up day one at EPCC stores.
Thank you, ma'am.
I think that's kind of what I'm looking at too, is if we could hire or invest in an army of Mr. De La Peñas from Parkland Middle, where he brings in 6 figures every year consistently, not just for his classroom, but for everybody at the middle school. Anyone who has requests, he goes and he helps them out. Can we get those folks to increase the chances that we bring in more money that way?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else? Dr. De La Torre.
Thank you, President Bustillos. Just before we adjourn this evening, I want to make some comments. I feel like the work that Ms. Camber and her team, the contributions, the effort by all of our principals and department heads has been nothing but extraordinary. And so to bring the deficit down from where it was to potentially the $11.9 million, I think merits applause and not dismissal. Having said that, this is what you can anticipate. We plan to present the budget before you on Wednesday. That is our recommendation. We were aware of campuses that could be considered for consolidation. The reason that we're reluctant to do that, with one exception, is because the savings aren't significant. You consolidate the campus, we've already made a commitment to our employees, to our teachers. They're under contract. We're not going to get rid of hourly employees over the summer. We just don't do that to people. And that is where you see significant savings, right? And so while it's a sound conversation to say, hey, we should go out and start looking for campuses to close, it doesn't generate the kind of revenue we're talking about. It generates about $1 million in utilities, and that's it. I still have to find a place for the principal, the assistant principal, the secretary, the librarian, and every one of those teachers and hourly employees at that campus. We made that commitment when we signed contracts in April. Our next step here is to work closely with the board once we adopt the budget and talk about whether or not it makes sense to go out for a Vader that generates an additional $5.5, $6 million. Now, it's important that when we go out, people understand that that $5.5, that $6 million is not going to solve the problem. What I don't want people to do is believe that if they support this and it passes, that we somehow overnight are in a place where we can start putting money into the unassigned or assigned fund balance. Concurrently, we're going to put an incentive out there to see if we can get employees, but primarily teachers and administrators who have considered retiring, resigning, relocating mid-year. If they notify us early, right, then we can at least consider the second half investment for the second half of the year as savings against the deficit that Ms. Camber just shared with y'all. And that could be significant. We'll work diligently in September and October. I don't know what will happen in November. I think everyone knows it's not an ideal time to go out and try and pass a Vader because of the midterm elections. By the end of December, we'll know how many people have notified us, not only that they're leaving at the end of December, but by then we will have had a second incentive available for employees so that they can tell us how many of them plan to leave in May of '27. What we don't want to do is have an adverse employee action unnecessarily if we have 100, 150, 200 employees who have decided that the 26-27 school year is their last year. During that period of time, as Ms. Camberness said, she will continue to work to sell properties. As Mr. Hernandez mentioned, it's not guaranteed. We have been told that Pereza is an attractive property to a particular buyer, and that Cesar Chavez is attractive. And that is part of the reason why we looked at and decided that midterm, because of the small size, we could, with all practical purposes, consolidate the academy and Thrive on a very, very nice campus and stop maintaining, fixing, doing all the things that we need to do consistently at Chavez. I spent 7 years as a chief human resource officer, chief labor negotiator in California. The law in California is that if someone is going to be released, reduced in force, they must be notified by March 15th. Final notice happens May 15th, right? So whenever I've been asked about if you were put in a position to reduce the force, I've always said I would want, if I were an employee, I would want to know as soon as possible so that I can begin to look at my options. And so our employees, if the things that we've laid out don't go as planned, we'll know prior to March 15th whether or not there's a possibility that we don't intend to renew their contract. Now, that's an important distinction because what YISD did, because they had already also entered into agreements, they'd already signed contracts, they had to declare financial exigency to be able to break those contracts. I'm not breaking contracts. In the spring, I wouldn't have to file for financial exigency. I would simply have to make a decision with your support based on our realities that would allow us to both finish the year with no deficit and have enough money going forward from the decisions that we make to start creating a surplus in the unassigned fund balance to get us out of this situation. Now, there are some other things that could happen. Hope is not a strategy, but we do have a legislative session. I know the associations. I know the administrator associations. I know our local politicians are all going to put a lot of pressure on Austin to increase the per-student allotment to at least help us address the 25% escalation or inflation that we're all facing across the state. And I am optimistic that there will be new money this legislative session that will be discretionary and will allow us to take a step in the right direction. The only reason I have not been as open and as transparent or as aggressive as has been suggested, I don't need to create anxiety. I don't need to create fear. I don't want our teachers and our employees going to work every day and worrying about that instead of worrying about the kids. And we have time. But don't for a minute believe that there isn't a plan that walks us all the way from this moment today to the end of the next school year and puts us in a position to do whatever we need to do to make sure that the experience that students have in our schools does not change. Co-curricular activities are in place, extracurricular activities are in place, fine arts, athletics, academics, all of it. All of it. Don't believe for a minute there isn't a plan. I just don't need my plan being forwarded to other people and other places until I'm ready to execute. And that's the truth.
Thank you.
I just had a question on that then. What, if we approve the plan that was presented to us, hopefully without the bereavement policy in there, what's the percentage of likelihood that we would face telling people bad news in March?
It's hard to say. If we sell properties, that would have an impact on it. If there's changes at the legislative session, that could have an impact on it. If we have a typical attrition, we typically see anywhere from 120 to 160 teachers leave. If you multiply that by $85,000, that's a pretty big chunk of money. It could come down to, does the board feel more comfortable taking the attrition and pursuing these loans and knowing that every year that attrition is not going to be replaced with the exception of those positions that are required by law, those positions in special education and those positions that require the bilingual certification. Or whether the board would say, let's tear the Band-Aid off, let's get right, and let's start 26 or 27, 28 with a balanced budget that results in a surplus at the end of the 28 year.
If we don't sell properties, and who knows what the
If we don't
state's
sell
gonna do. Even
properties
if
and
the state says they're going to do it, doesn't mean they're going to do it.
then at the end of the year, you would make, or next spring, you would be asked to make a very difficult decision. But you can make it now or you can make it there. It doesn't make any difference because all your teachers and employees are under contract. So to your point, we're ready and we understand. But that is exactly what would happen, politics aside.
Thank you. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved at 8:20.
Thank you.